Lee in Arizona, Jeff in Ohio, Inger in Florida, John in Ohio, Dave in Florida, and many others. Your calls are coming up. Wide open phones for the next hour with Bob Chapman. I'm going to recap some of the top stories, get into some of the other news I haven't covered yet. Bob, there's so much to talk about. For those that don't know, Bob Chapman, of course, was in military intelligence during the Cold War in Berlin. Then he became one of the most successful silver and gold traders out there. He also helped publish some of the original Patriot publications, like Gary Allen's Done Dare Call a Conspiracy, that woke me up. Really, there's one founding thing that really put it all together. I had the info, kind of the term born awake. I mean, I just grew up knowing history, knowing the truth, learning it as I went. But that film really crystallized things when I was about 14 or 15 and read it. He was involved publishing that, worked with so many other people, and, of course, has one of the biggest newsletters out there, The International Forecaster, theinternationalforecaster.com. Our website's Infowars.com. But I want to move through just quick topics with you. Let's cover the economy first. They keep saying it's the end of the recession, everything's fine. 558,000 people lost their job in the last month. The job losses are accelerating. The restaurants are closing, the factories, the industries. I wish things were getting better, but all the real indicators of Main Street, unless I'm wrong, Bob, show an implosion. But then they are taking their 23.7, and that's a month-old number. We'll get new numbers in the next month. 23.7 trillion. Almost double the GDP stolen in 10 months. They are pumping it in, but they admit that's mainly institutional buyers of those stocks and bonds. They're buying up infrastructure. The banks aren't lending. The Federal Reserve's paying to not lend. The dollar's going down. Gold's going up. Are we going to see another run-up in commodities like we saw a year and a half ago? Bob Chapman, are these green shoots, or what's really happening?
You get poison ivy. How's that for an opener?
Poison ivy.
Right into it. And I thank you very much. But listen, if everything was so hunky-dory, why have three top officials, top people, we'll say, in economics come out and said, I think we might need another stimulus here. Like I projected last January, I talked in terms of $2 trillion. And now even Joe Stiglitz has come out, and he's at Harvard, and he's an eminent World Bank economist, and he says, yeah, we need one of these. We've got to give Keynesianism a chance. What he's saying is, I don't think the first go-around was allocated properly in the right places at the right time. The people who got the checks, they went out and paid all their bills with them instead of spending them. They got a lot of what's involved in the stimulus package is a lot of tax breaks. It takes too long for them to come down the pike. And so he's talking in terms like others are in the administration. They're getting the ball rolling. By the end of the year, they'll be looking for that $2 trillion so that this thing doesn't go under. But I think the big story here that nobody has talked about, and that's usually the case when I start spouting off about what's going on, there's something hidden here that people don't understand. And I'm going to make it as simple as possible. It was recently that the Federal Reserve, again, created $500 billion out of nothing. They lent that or exchanged that with 5 other major central banks and received currencies for that. And they received dollars. They use those currencies to go into the foreign exchange market to push, while they sell those foreign currencies, to push those currencies down so that the dollar will go up. And that's what that's for. But they're doing something else. They are having those central banks take those dollars that they have and go into the Treasury auction market and buy U.S. Treasury bills, notes, and bonds.
So that's monetizing the debt, but they're doing it by laundering it through foreign banks.
Exactly. Now, let me give you some statistics. I'm writing a piece on China. I don't know whether it'll get published this weekend, probably on Wednesday. And the Chinese, it looks like they've sold off about $600 billion worth of dollar-denominated assets, taking their dollar-denominated assets down to $1.1 trillion. Now, they have not been buying treasuries. And so there's an absence of buying of $500 billion to $1 trillion. So we'll say $700 billion. So if you take it both ways, you've got a sale of 600 and a non-buy of 700. That's I lost my train of thought there. It's 500 and 700. That's $1.3 trillion that was either sold or didn't participate. And somebody's got to come up with that money. Foreign central banks of some kind, and they're not coming up with it. They're buying, but they're not buying enough. So the difference is they're not buying, the Fed's buying, and they're creating the money to do so through the foreign central banks, and they're trying to befuddle everybody. And when foreigners find out what they're doing secretly, they're going to freak out, because they're holding 64.5% of the foreign exchange that they have in dollars. So if the dollar goes down because of what the Fed's doing behind the scenes, they're going to be very unhappy about that.
But the Fed is also, let me just interrupt here, the Fed is also, as you said, and this has been confirmed, it's also devaluing their currency, so everybody's sinking so that it's not as noticeable, and then all of the assets are going to the elites.
That's correct. And, the Chinese could be out of the dollar in a year, maybe a year and a half, dependent. And that's a big reason why the dollar's going to get out and test 71.18. It's now around 78.5 or so. And I think when it tests, it may well break through to the downside. And the reason I say that is all these other nations who have been holding on, they're going to say, hey, we've been taken. Now, how long that's going to take, I don't know. It could take 6 months. It could take 2.5 years. I don't know. We don't know what the reaction of these governments is going to be, because don't forget that when they don't do what Washington tells them, and they're very strong about, we don't want to do that, Washington tells them, do you want your country invaded? I mean, do you want your internet and banking services cut off? Do you want your postal from the United States cut off? Your planes can't land in our country. And this is true. They do this, because I've been told by ex-heads of state that they actually do this. So this is where this is all leading. And the dollar going down is a lead pipe cinch.
Yeah.
The question is how bad it'll be.
Well, Bob, that's what the world government is. They brag. This new Bank of the World won't just by fiat or intimidation or arm twisting or claiming you're a terrorist state and putting embargoes on you or sanctions. They are going to openly have the power to manipulate all the currencies and manipulate the interest rates and tell nations what carbon footprint they can have, and selectively even rig things more than it is now and use command destruction. In their own words, they want negative growth to consolidate for the good of the environment, but really that's just their psychological excuse for their minions of why they're doing this. I mean, this is so diabolical. Here's the next question. How is it going for them? Are things going well in your expert opinion?
I think they're not going well for them, and that was pointed out in Greece at the Bilderberger conference. And what they're trying to do, I think, is pull this thing back and stop it. And I think it's way beyond their ability to stop this destruction economically and financially of not only the United States but the world. And I really think that that's what they're trying to do in here, and that's what I think they agreed on. And I don't think it's possible. It would be good, actually, if it was possible. But, June of 2002 was the date when you had flown too far and you couldn't go back, the point of no return. And they're going to have to live with it. And if it doesn't work out for them, what's going to happen is the public is going to say, all right, who did this to us? They're going to line them up in court, and they're going to put them in jail, and they're going to take their wealth away from them if they're lucky. If we have a repeat of the French Revolution, I don't think it's going to be very nice.
But, Bob, the problem is the establishment, and I'm sure of it now with the Southern Poverty Law Center's declaration demonizing any gun owners or anybody that doesn't want world government, the feds are going to stage terror attacks against themselves. We even have congressmen coming out saying they're going to stage something. They may use flu for martial law. Congressman Brown is in the Louisville Journal. This is all very clear. Their only move is to play the victim, and they always do that with a Reichstag event.